would love it. I would really, really love it if just for once, just one time, if people can actually report on Crash Bandicoot news accurately. Is that a hard request? Is that too much of a difficult task to ask of gaming journalism nowadays? I was going to record a video about Spyro 4, and then I was going to record a video about these eggs that I made. But no. I have to talk about this minutia, this mess. Over the years, and it's not just now, Crash Bandicoot has been the butt end of some of the worst journalistic reporting that I have ever seen. I mean, literally just over a month ago, I had to make a video explaining that Toys for Bob's logo is basically not Aku Aku as a placeholder on their website, meaning that a new Crash game is in development. And here we are again with another news piece that's been blowing up, except this time, it's somehow even worse. What? Crash Bandicoot 5 is canceled. Yep, that's where we're at now, ladies and gentlemen. Crash Bandicoot 5 has been canceled. So Crash Bandicoot has been dead again for the 7th time in the past 5 years. Make sure to show up to the gravestone. Make sure to show up to the funeral for the 7th time. Bring some flowers and some wumpas. I'm sure he would love it. If you could not tell by my tone, I am not amused with this quality A-tier reporting. So I'm gonna do what apparently many won't, and that is tell you the truth. So strap in, everybody, because I'm about to tell you what happened, what was said, what was vastly misinterpreted, and what is, in fact, a fact. Because apparently I have to make this video because some gaming journalists have the reading comprehension of a brainless ape on Adderall. Let's start with what happened. Nicholas Cole, or Nick Cole, is an amazing artist who has previously worked with Toys for Bob and Activision, and worked on both Spyro Reignited and Crash Bandicoot 4. He moved on to do other jobs as well after the fact, like working on Sonic Prime and Disney's Lorcana card game, which honestly, me and my wife play all the time. But another project that he worked on was with 5's Labs. You may know them for their games like Dauntless and Fae Farm. He worked on a project for about 3 years before, sadly, following the trend of unfortunately many in the gaming industry today, 5's Labs laid off a large portion of their employees and canned projects in the process, including the one that Nick Cole was passionately working on. This, of course, made him and the entire team working on that project visibly upset, as it should. So a few months went by, and apparently after an internal push to try and have the game revived, Nick decided to share the name of the project that he was working on, Project Dragon. Now, some people did do an initial double take on this, as Nick is well known in the Spyro the Dragon community. Now, some thought that this could have been a canceled Spyro title. Now, of course, this is an understandable mix-up, and Nick even came out to clarify with the following tweet. Of course, he wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this project wasn't related to Spyro. Nick actually continued to answer a whole bunch of questions about a number of things to a number of users, and one of his replies was the following, quote, "It is not Spyro, but someday folks will hear about the Crash 5 that never was, and it's going to break hearts. Now hang on to your socks, cause the swerves are coming." So this reply, of course, hit the Crash fandom, and it started a discussion throughout the entire community. At first, it didn't hit any major news outlets, but don't worry, it would only take another post for them to screw everything up. After a short time announcing about Project Dragon, Nick posted a gigantic portfolio of all the work that he did for the project, while giving more details about what was about and its development. So essentially, Nick wanted to share to the world a great project that was unfortunately so close to being announced and sadly was canceled. And he simply wanted to at least share, inspire, and maybe have a piece of it live on with others.
Sounds like a great idea! With the best of intentions, what could possibly go wrong?
It has now been confirmed that Microsoft has canceled Crash Bandicoot 5, following them letting go of Toys for Bob. The game was in development for 3 years. What?
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Oh, but trust me, it gets worse. It gets much worse. Numerous articles, threads, comments, everything started piling up like garbage and popping up everywhere, saying different versions of the same story, mixing up Project Dragon and saying that it was the alleged Crash 5, and the comments started pouring in on many posts about it, with everyone giving their hot takes as if it were facts when they couldn't be further from that said fact. Reading these articles and comments felt equivalent to having my head being bashed in with a ball-peen hammer. People were blaming everything and everyone under the sun that had nothing to do with what Nick talked about. First, they blamed Microsoft for the cancellation. Then people blamed Toys for Bob for their poor game choices. Then people blamed Crash Team Rumble's performance and everything you can think of additionally. And the cherry on top of it all, on top of this nice, big, steaming pile of journalism integrity, once again, people are saying the Crash franchise is dead. Of course, because why wouldn't they? It's just expected at this point. So, it has been 24 hours. Let's start with actual clarity. Nick Cole did in fact work on Spyro Reignited and Crash Bandicoot 4 at Toys for Bob as a contractor. However, he was released from Activision, along with many others, unfortunately, in 2021. Now, fast forward to 2023 last year, where Crash Team Rumble was released. So, if there was a Crash 5 in any stage or form of development while Nick was there, it would have been in 2021. And Crash Team Rumble wasn't even formally revealed yet during that time. So, I'm not a mathematician, but saying Rumble is to blame, by all accounts, it doesn't make sense. So Crash Team Rumble had literally zero donuts, no effect on Crash Bandicoot 5. It wasn't made instead of Crash 5, and Crash 5 wasn't canceled because of Rumble's performance. No, that's all wrong. Those are all lies. Let's get that out of the way. Next up, Toys for Bob and Activision as a whole weren't even bought out by Microsoft at this point. They were still operating independently as Activision Blizzard. So no, once again, Microsoft is not to blame for this either. And simply because of timing, if this alleged Crash 5 was canceled, then it would have been in and around 2020 and 2021 due to when Crash Bandicoot 4 released and when Nick was released from Toys for Bob. So if Crash Team Rumble came out in 2023, that means Crash Bandicoot isn't viewed as dead because a whole bloody game released in between then and now. Not to mention, we have just gotten a recent update stating that Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, has sold over 5 million copies. And remember, these are actual sales, not downloads. And Crash 5 was also released as a full price game, meaning they're netting more per game per sale. Now, there is an important detail here that a lot of people are not asking, and I think this is going to be a big key factor to a lot of answers to people are asking about this, and that is the why. Why was this alleged Crash 5 canceled? Well, I think I can give as close to an answer as possible. So if we rewind back to the end of 2020, the days became pretty gloomy for Toys for Bob. Wumpa League, or Crash Team Rumble, was initially going to release 1 year after the release of Crash Bandicoot 4. We know this by the leaked release schedule and project timelines that we got our hands on. However, at that time, the remote work aspect that was brought on by the pandemic actually slowed down Call of Duty's production. So because of that and all the panic that it literally spurred, Toys for Bob was essentially told to drop everything that they were working on to go and help with Call of Duty in some way, shape, or form. So this meant that Crash Team Rumble, which basically had 1 year of active development left, and every other project that was being worked on at the time was initially stopped. Then, in early 2021, there was a report that went out saying that a large portion of Toys for Bob's art department was let go, and many came forward to confirm this. However, I will say there are some mixed reports on this, as some have said that the employees weren't necessarily let go, but that their contracts were up and Activision decided to just not renew them, because Toys for Bob was helping with Call of Duty and apparently didn't need an art team at the time. Whatever the details were, the point is the art team was no longer working with Toys for Bob by the end of early 2021. So if Crash 4 came out in October 2020, which it did, and Crash Team Rumble was initially slated to come out a year later, and Nick Cole was working on Crash Bandicoot 5 at the time, but did not have his contract renewed in early 2021, then in my opinion, I think the project was in very early development, likely in ideation and concepting phase, which of course Nick would be very much a part of. But due to Toys for Bob being forced to work on Call of Duty, the project likely never took full flight, or the ideas come to a full fruition. Now, Crash Team Rumble only had a year left of development, so after they were done on Call of Duty, they could have easily salvaged it and finished it up and sent it out the door. But any of the other projects that were being worked on at the time were likely just overall scrapped due to the art team that was originally working on it no longer being a part of that company anymore. And again, to reread what Nick Cole said, the Crash 5 key words here, that never was. Tying that with what we have just discussed, to me means that this was an idea of Crash Bandicoot 5. Now, I have spoken with and am personal friends with many people in the industry, from indie to AAA, and overall, in game development, you're literally throwing and pitching so many ideas. When you start out in development, you're just seeing what sticks. It's possible that what Nick is talking about could have been one of 7 Crash 5's that were being explored at the time. To quote Lou Studdert, a game director from Toys for Bob, during one of my interviews, he said, quote, "Game development is a whirling dervish of chaos that pretty much settles close to the end." And I think that this is a prime example of exactly that. So, does this mean that we will never see Crash 5 and that it was canceled? Absolutely not. This cancellation would have been pretty much over 3 years ago, and it wasn't due to an alleged poor performance on previous titles. It was due to Activision forcing Toys for Bob to work on Call of Duty and then not renewing the art team's contracts. So a new Crash Bandicoot is very much possible. But when will we see it? Well, that's the question of the hour. And if you want to stay tuned for that, make sure to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.